Hi, my name's Simon Strong. I'm the founder of Download Learning. Traditional learning methods address the short-term memory. The synapses associated with short-term memory fire very rapidly in order to cope with the huge amount of stimulus that we experience every day. They sort through that information and discard anything that's irrelevant. Research shows that around 80% of what we learn in a classroom is discarded after just 48 hours. In contrast, the synapses associated with long-term memory are more sluggish. They take about 10 minutes to reset after having been fired. But if they're fired multiple times, that creates a chemical reaction to create a new neural connection, in effect, tattooing information into the brain. So how does download work? Well, we present information 3 times. Each time we present the information slightly differently. Between each presentation of the topic information, we have 10-minute distraction activities that enable the synapses to reset. What does it look like? The first learning input presents information in clean language. It'll be much quicker than you're used to, and it's also very condensed. Here we go. It's helpful to understand how the brain works. In order to remain in control, we need to balance the demand to think with the demand to act. Our brains can only deal with around 7 bits of information at any one time. So when we have too much going on, too much to think about, or too many things to do, or worse, too much to think about and too much to do, we can overload our cognitive capability and our brains can't process new information. Our focus becomes tunneled, we lose our sense of time, and our senses, sight, touch, taste, smell, and especially hearing, become blunted. This cognitive overload is what leads to a loss of situational awareness and the immediate cause of the accident, the active failure. The second learning repeats the information, but this time we put it in context. We use case studies and stories to show the information being used in real-life scenarios.
When people have introduced themselves, it flattens the hierarchy appropriately and it makes it easier for people to speak up if they have concerns or they haven't quite caught all the detail of the plan. Short-term memory only holds 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 bits of information. And what you want is people to make sure that they all know everything as appropriate.
Finally, on the third presentation of the information to the students, we have an active recall session, questions and answers, where we ask the student to recall information and we reinforce it. Here we go. How many bits of information can our working memory deal with at any one time? It has been estimated that our working memory can deal with just 7, plus or minus 2, bits of information at any one time. For practical purposes, huddles, briefings, handovers, our working memory is really around 4 or 5 bits of information. In between presentations of the topic information, we have distraction activities. The distraction activities are there to ensure the student doesn't think about the topic and inadvertently fire synapses and interfere with the learning process. The best way to do that is to ensure the student thinks about something different. In this instance, it's a general knowledge quiz on interesting stuff. What is a baby spider called? A spiderling. A baby cockroach is called a nymph. A baby platypus is a puggle. And a baby pigeon is a squeaker. In one study, students taught using this method after a 1-hour lesson were able, a year later, to get the same marks under exam conditions as their peers who had studied the same topic for 2 full academic terms. That's 23 hours of classroom-based learning, plus revision, plus homework. This approach is incredibly effective, providing consistency in learning, saving days of time of training, is more cost-effective than traditional approaches, and is a much more enjoyable experience for the learner.